Coming up on the program, why does your Brussels sprouts never Brussels sprout? We'll talk about that as we plant them in our back large garden.
And we're planting beets in our giant grow bag. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored in part by, for all your non-GMO, heirloom, organic, vegetable, flowers, and herb seeds, visit dollarseed.com. Sioux Growing Supply, located in Wausau, Wisconsin, focusing on certified leaf compost, an excellent amendment for poor soil. With their new garden blend, improving soil structure in clay and sandy soil, great for creating new garden beds. Also available from Sioux's, pre-filled trays and pots with professional potting soil mix or organic rice hull-based potting soil mix. Bag and bulk of certified leaf compost also available. Visit SiouxGrowingSupply.com. Don't poison your soil with municipal water. Attach a body, mind, and soil hose and filter. Free shipping exclusively through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Just click on the body, mind, and soil icon. Authentic Haven brand soil conditioner for the home gardener. Easy to brew, 100% organic. Visit MinerTea.com. Rain Reserve. Reserving your rain, preserving our future. Rain Reserve, manufacturing of rainwater capturing capabilities. Visit rainreserve.com and use coupon code RAIN2016 to save 10% on your total purchase. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. We're on the backside of the large garden today where we're going to plant our Brussels sprouts. We're going to plant them on the backside here for a couple of reasons. One, it gets morning sun and afternoon shade, which will be very beneficial to the Brussels sprouts come the middle portions of summer. Now, we've grown Brussels sprouts a couple of years since we've been in this garden location. The very first year we planted them in the far back bed, which we call bed 24, and we had phenomenal Brussels sprouts. We had about 6-7 plants back there, did very well, had very large sprouts on them on the stalk. So we went ahead and planted them again the next year in a different location, I don't recall where, and we got absolutely nothing. So we waited a year, planted them again, didn't really get much of anything. Last year we planted them in this bed here, and we got very, very tiny sprouts, about the size of marbles. So we've done some research and found out a couple of things. One, the plants need a very good nutrient-based, rich soil, fertilizer. We all know that, that's not a mystery. Secondly, if you have problems with your Brussels sprouts not sprouting or putting sprouts on them, it could be because of the location that you're growing them in or the time of year. Brussels sprouts are sensitive to heat. If it's too hot, they simply won't produce sprouts, and you'll have a beautiful plant but no sprouts, or very small sprouts, or sprouts that won't close up like small cabbages on the stalk. So what we've decided to do here is take this bed here that we was going to designate for tomatoes, and we're going to take part of the bed and grow Brussels sprouts. I don't want to commit to the whole bed. We'll still have enough space for 4 tomato plants in the back here and 6 Brussels sprout plants here. The reason why I'm not utilizing the whole bed is we have failures in the garden, and I don't want to waste or take the use of an entire bed for Brussels sprouts, and then in 4 to 6 months we wind up having just green plants. So I want to at least get some productivity out of this bed with those 4 tomato plants in conjunction with the Brussels sprouts. Now, these Brussels sprouts we started about 8 weeks ago indoors. They're very nice looking. I've got 2 in that. Let me find one that's got because we're going to have to divide that out. Very nice looking. We've hardened them off. Now, Brussels sprouts, just like kale and cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, they're a cool weather crop. Now, these will set in the ground for up to 6 months, 7 months till they reach maturity. Now, I will also bury the stem. Now, by no means will that allow the plant won't put on more root fibers because I buried the stem. I'm simply burying the stem to add more support to the plant. Now what we're going to use here is we're going to use homemade compost, which we've sifted from our compost pile. We're going to dig a hole, about a 6-inch hole, 6 inches across, about 6 inches deep, and we're going to fill each hole with compost. Now, when you're dealing with the concept of digging a hole and adding compost to it, you want to make sure that you've checked the status of your soil, which means how quickly does it drain. So we dug a hole, filled it with water, and checked and see how long it took for that water to drain out of that hole. It took about 3 minutes. Now, what this is telling us is we've got a decent amount of organic material and a decent amount of drainage capabilities in our garden. Now, if you was to do that and that hole sat there full with a gallon of water for a prolonged period of time, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, that means you have a very dense clay in your soil, very thick a very high level of clay in your soil, and you're not going to drain well. Now, what I would suggest is to work a lot of organic material in your garden. If you if you do have clay soil, you don't want to dig a hole, put new organic compost in that hole, and then plant, because what happens is that hole didn't drain when there was no soil in it when you tested it. So whenever you put the compost in, plant the plant, you're going to set that plant basically in a cup where that water is just going to sit there for a long time. So use your native soil if you're going to do such a this, and backfill with your own soil, because then it had kind of all is natural and universal in the drainage capabilities, that you're not using imported soil, you're using what you got. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if you have real sandy soil and you pour the water and the water drains out quicker than you pour it in, then you want to bring in some organic material. This would be a good ideal to dig a hole and backfill it with good compost in order to try to hold some of that moisture. Now, any of these scenarios, with Brussels sprouts, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, you can grow these in a container as well, but you want to make sure your container is far large enough to handle the root system of it, probably at least a 10 or 15 gallon container per plant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these holes dug, and we're going to backfill with good compost. We'll talk about the fertilizer, and we'll get our Brussels sprouts in the ground. Okay, so we've got our 6 holes dug. We filled it with compost that we made here on the property. Now we found lots and lots and lots of worms in the soil that we dug out of the holes. Now the worms will migrate back down into the soil. Now what you're thinking is, well, why are you doing this if you've got such good worms, so many worms in the soil? Well, we're simply building the fertility of the soil. We'll fill these holes with compost. We will plant it, and we'll use leaves as mulch. And then over the duration of the growing season, the soil that we've pulled out of the beds, as it rains and breaks down, it will work itself back into the soil, or back into the earth. And then next year we'll add more compost, and et cetera, et cetera. We'll keep building the life in the soil. So we're not hurting the worms, we're just inconveniencing them at this time. They'll work their way back into the soil and back into the ground. They'll be fine. But again, we're just building a kind of a mountain here, and as it rains, it will wash all that back in. So let's plant this Brussels sprout in this hole here. Now, like I said, we want to plant them. Untangle. Okay. I'm going to plant them deeper than what they are, simply for strength. Now you can see how it's kind of curved like that, because that's the way it grew, and we hardened it off, and that's the way it reached for the light. So we're going to plant it, I'm going to plant it like, vertical, and then allow the plant to naturally reach towards the light. So let's talk about fertilizer here. We're using a combination of some fertilizer we had on hand. Did the mathematical calculations, and it's approximately a 10-8-8, 10% nitrogen, 8% phosphorus, 8% potassium. So what we want to do here, you can do this a couple of different ways. You can put the fertilizer in the bottom of the hole, backfill with some soil, so the fertilizer and the roots don't come immediately into contact. They will gradually they'll come in contact eventually, but you don't want it immediately because it can burn the plants. Also, another way you can do it is the way I'm going to show you here. We're going to just go ahead and plant the Brussels sprout, backfill, and make a little trough here. I've still got 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 here. Then I'm going to take my fertilizer, and with the calculations that I've come up with, I need 2.5 scoops. So I'm going to put it around the plant, side dress it here. Now what this will allow it to do, there's no, either way is fine, but what this is allowing it to do, I'm going to take some compost and backfill over top of it, and then we'll water it in. So what's happening is, I'll use this as an example. You can plant your plant, put the fertilizer at the base, and as the roots expand out, they'll pick up that fertilizer. But also what is happening is, as it rains, as you water, that is leaching that fertilizer farther and farther away from the roots. There will still be some there for the plant to pick up, but as you add water, just like in a container, it'll leach it out, it'll keep washing the fertilizer away. So by top dressing it here, as we water, as it rains, it will work itself down into the root ball, and it will be more readily available, and there will be more nutrients available for the plant to pick up, rather than it kind of searching for it as you water if you fertilized at the base. Now either way will work, but this seems to be more of a better chance for the fertilizer to get utilized by the plant versus kind of leaching out away from the plant. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. So I'm going to get the rest of these planted, and then we'll talk about mulch. All right, so I got our 6 plants in the ground here. Now let's talk about mulch. We use leaves a lot here at the garden. In the fall, we pick as many leaves up on the property and the street as we can, and we're going to utilize them as much as we can around the plants to retain moisture and suppress weeds. And that's all I'm going to do is I'm going to gently lift the leaves up, tuck some underneath, and then that's the way we're going to go. Now, if you don't have leaves, because maybe you didn't save any leaves last year, you can certainly use dry grass clippings around it. You want to make sure you mow your grass, either let it dry in the yard, or if you bag it up, you can dry it on a black pavement of a driveway. Make sure it's dry, make sure you've mowed it, and you don't have weed seeds in it, because that's going to incorporate into your garden, and you're going to go backwards. You don't want weeds in your garden. Grass clippings without weed seeds is really good, and just put them around the plants. It'll work very well. You can also use straw as a mulch as well. So there's a lot of good organic ways to mulch around your plants, and I encourage you to do that to suppress the weeds and to hold the moisture in, so you're not having to water as much, and your plants can be as healthy as possible. So that's what we got with our Brussels sprouts. We're hoping for success this year, since we're following some tips here that will hopefully get us good Brussels sprouts. Even though we don't want to utilize the whole bed, we can still grow tomatoes and Brussels sprouts in the same bed together. This doesn't look like much, looks like a field of weeds and dead foliage from last year. Well, this is where our artichoke, Jerusalem artichoke or sunchoke bed was and always will be, because Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes are a perennial that continually come back year after year, even if you want them not to. That's why it's recommended, if you do choose to grow them, that you grow them in a container, which we have done so, or in a raised bed, so you can contain the spreading of the tuber. Now, it is an edible tuber, good for diabetics, low on starch. You don't have to cook it to eat it. So based on your philosophy of food that keeps growing over and over again, like Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes, may not be a bad thing. But we're in the spring of the year here. Normally you harvest these in the later fall when the tops die back. We still can harvest them now. You can harvest them all through winter if you're in an area where it doesn't get frozen like it does here in southeast Wisconsin. Now there's ways that you can get around that. But we're just going to dig up some artichokes here. We've never, this bed here is approximately 10 foot wide by about 10 foot, so about 100 square feet, and we've never actually gone through the whole bed during a harvest season. There's still artichokes here that have been growing that we've never touched for 3 going on 4 years now. So we're just going to pick a spot here and just take our fork and see what we get. Now we're probably going to stab some in here. All right, what do we have? There we go. Took a chunk out of that one. Oh, here's some. Now what you're seeing here is you got a couple of things going on here. You've got the growth tip for this year's plant. You've got roots that have come off of it. These grow very similar to a potato, where the sprout will, there will be energy that will be coming from the tuber, and then once that energy, once it starts photosynthesizing from the sun, it'll be detached from the tuber, and this tuber will rot in the soil, and then all these root fibers will create more tubers. You can see here where it has, that is where it was initially attached to the plant last year. You can just cut that portion off, snap the growth tip off, and it's still good. This one here is smaller. It doesn't have anything yet. I'm going to dig around here and find a few more and show you a couple more examples of what you're looking for in the spring, even that you can harvest and still eat before these things start taking off and growing. So I've dug a couple up here. They're on the smaller side, which we noticed that last year. Now this is also another opportunity if you're going to give tubers away or plant them in another area, such as a food forest or around a perimeter of whatever, fill in the blank. Now's the time to do this, do the planting of it, because they got the growth tips, and you just bury this down about 6 inches and it'll be fine. All of them do have this place where it was attached to the plant last year. Snip that one with the fork, but they're small. You can just do like a normal potato. You can pop the growth tip off of it, chop these up, eat them raw, saute them, whatever you choose to do. You can also dehydrate them if you want to figure out some unique way of using the dried Jerusalem artichoke powder. That's something when you dry them that way. So, and also another way to utilize them is a fermentation. We found the best way that we found is eat them raw, as well as put them in a crock pot or a slow cooker for many hours with a roast or other vegetables. They become very buttery in taste, very soft in taste, and they're very, very good eating it that way. So if you've got Jerusalem artichokes, you can still harvest them now, even though that you will see some growth tips on them. They're still totally edible. You may have to cut some of the bad portions off of them, but you can still get some harvest now before they start growing, and you have to wait until fall to get another harvest.
We like growing beets. Beets are a nice crop to grow, and we're going to grow them in this giant grow bag. Now, when planting beets, you can plant about 9 per square foot. You plant them about a ½ inch. So for me, I always think it's like up to my first knuckle, and they take about 55 days to mature to get your beets, and they're a root crop, so they're going to grow below the soil, but you can eat the tops as well, the beet greens. We like to pickle them or ferment them. So I'm just going to plant them, I think, about 10 per side here of this grow bag. So let's see here, 1, 2, maybe probably like 12 actually, I think, because yeah, 3 groups of 4. So I'm going to get those planted here. Now beets do well once the soil is, once you're out of a hard freeze, and if you want to plant them in containers, that's good. Last year we had a little bit of trouble because we planted them and then it got cold, really wet, and then cold, and we think they just kind of rotted in the soil. So if you want to plant them in containers, that's good, or in the soil, whatever you choose. So I'm just going to go ahead and get these planted, and then I'll get them covered up here. Now they do grow. The seeds come in a cluster, so there's between like 4 or 5-ish seeds in that little cluster. That's just how the seeds, when the plant produces a seed, that's just what happens. So sometimes you have to come in and thin them out if you have too many beets, and you don't want to transplant them. You just kind of thin them out. So that's why it's important just to plant 1 per hole and not to plant a whole bunch, because there's already a couple seeds there anyway. So there you have the beets. They're easy to plant, easy to grow, many things. They're very, very good for you as well, and you can eat the beet portion. You can also eat the greens.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Join us next time for more organic gardening and home food preserving. I'm Holly Baird, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.